Jill Vecchio. I've been here a few times. I speak on a bunch of different subjects. I'm retired for 1 year, yay. Physician, MD, with traditional training in the 80s, before things really changed a lot. Of course, it's been a slow progression, but anyway, our training had stayed stable for a long time, but shortly after I got out of medical school, things really started to ramp up in changing the business and policy of healthcare. So I'm going to talk briefly about that. I started getting involved in politics with Obamacare, and I read Obamacare. I saw what was in it that wasn't even being discussed, what the truth was about Obamacare. I studied the entire healthcare industry, became a healthcare policy fellow for Centennial Institute, called on local, state, federal, and international diplomats and policymakers, trying to educate our policymakers on the healthcare system as well. And then since the Obamacare issue kind of died down, we stopped being interested in that and more interested in whether Stormy Daniels and President Trump had, right? So I then started getting interested in just about, I'd hear something on the news, and I'm like, I don't really know very much about the banking system. What is this great reset? What is Agenda 2020 or Agenda 2021? What is Agenda 2030? So I find out the truth for myself. I do research, and then I compact it down into a talk, because once I've learned it myself, I kind of go, other people probably want to know this too, and if they can learn it in 40 minutes or an hour, I'll bet they'd really appreciate that. And it will change the way you look at the news every single day, because I can guarantee you every single thing that is making you anxious and making you go, huh, is all connected. Yes. It's all connected mostly to Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and the Great Reset, which are all iterations of the same grand plan. I'm not going to go into that, but there are talks that I've given here on the Wyoming Principles of Freedom website and the Salt Life Christian Fellowship websites. And I recently also did one on child sex trafficking and Agenda 2030, including transhumanism and AI. And Pastor Don started out today kind of alluding to what may be transpiring in the near future, how much from a biblical prophecy standpoint, and I believe it really seems to all be tied together to a 2030 type date. In the past, when I was a little kid, in the good old days, or so to speak, doctors had relationships directly with their patients. They could give free care if they wanted to. Did you know doctors can't give free care in a lot of cases? It's considered a fraud to give free care or to undercharge patients for care. Patients could make arrangements with hospitals for payment plans. Then, I'm not going to go into my entire history of healthcare at all, but then the government started getting involved after World War II. In order to compete for employees, businesses, employers started offering a thing called a benefits package. It included healthcare, life insurance, things like that. That right there started the ball rolling of inserting some entity, the government, the employer, insurance companies, regulatory agencies, in between the doctor and the patient. We were separated bureaucratically from our patients, beginning in the 1960s. Does everybody get that? Well, actually in the 1940s. But it really ramped up when they passed Medicare and Medicaid in the 60s. So you have to understand, this has been a long process. And we've increasingly medicine has become more and more corporate. I call it the consolidate, control, and destroy method. They're doing it in farming. Dr. Nate talked a little bit about that. It used to be all small farms. In World War II, it was all small farmers. When I was growing up on a farm, we had cattle, sheep, we grew our own stuff, had our own garden, we traded with people, whatever. We took care of each other as a community. And we farmed the land, we worked hard. Now, it seems like but nobody understands that ever existed, right? Everything has to be at a grocery store. Everything has to be given to us by the government. Everything has to, you look to somebody else to solve your problems. That's not the answer. And it wasn't that long ago. I'm not that old. That, I grew up with that kind of a farming background, farming community. You did things for yourself, or you did things together as a community. It's gone. Consolidate, control, destroy. Now they're consolidating farms, they consolidated their healthcare industry. You want to complain about, we've been a lot of complaints about traditional medicine, and I agree with you 100%. I'm a doctor and I don't want to go to a doctor. I don't trust them anymore. After COVID, I have no trust for any healthcare facility or doctor. And you know why? Because the doctors no longer are able to make individual, independent decisions for their patients. Because they're owned by corporations. They're owned by large medical groups and corporate healthcare like Trinity, Banner, Health One.
Cheyenne Regional Medical Center.
Right, they all own the doctors. Obamacare set that up. Obamacare was the ultimate control, consolidate, control, and destroy. Because Obamacare put heavy regulations, huge fines, the burdens financially and time-wise on electronic health records, all the things you had to jump, all the hoops you had to jump through to get paid as a radiologist. If I had a period, literally, in the wrong place of a report, they'd send it back to us and we wouldn't get paid for it. And I'm not kidding, it was that bad. Okay, so you can imagine before Obamacare passed, 90% of physicians, of like internal medicine and family physicians in our country were self-employed, and therefore they were employers as well. They were helping their employees send their kids to college. After Obamacare took effect, and it didn't take very long, so that today, 90% of physicians are employees of large groups or corporate healthcare companies. That means that as radiology, we've always been under the thumb of the hospitals because that's where we work for the most part, unless we own outpatient facilities. But most radiologists, anesthesiologists, pathologists, that sort of thing, we're used to being under the thumb of the hospitals, where you can't even determine who you work with as techs or nurses. You can't get anybody fired. You can't complain about anything. You have to do exactly what they tell you when they tell you to do it, or you lose your job. You don't just lose your job, you lose your credentials. The minute you lose your credentials, you could lose your license. And that's exactly what they threatened with COVID, and that's exactly what happened to a lot of really great doctors during COVID. COVID could not have happened unless Obamacare happened first, and they consolidated the healthcare industry so that they could control the doctors, so the doctors couldn't speak out without serious repercussions. I graduated from the 29th grade, 29 years of education and training to get to be a doctor. Now, if somebody tells me I have to have a vaccination, well, I'm glad I'm old, because I quit. I retired. But what a hard decision. If I were 10 years younger, that would have been a much harder decision, especially 10 years younger and not knowing what I know about my constitutional rights. But I still don't give the doctors a pass. I don't give any healthcare workers a pass, because all it would have taken is 10% of the people working in that facility to stand up and say no. If they had all stood up and said, no, we're not going to do it, if every employer had his employees stand up and say, 20% of the employees, 10%, you can't run your business, okay? Maybe you're going to rethink your policy. If everybody hadn't been so danged compliant and fearful, it was ridiculous. And doctors didn't even use their heads. I mean, it's like I took immunology in 1985, and I remembered it. Natural immunity. Yeah, okay, natural immunity isn't a joke. It doesn't just stop working. Trust the science, fine, give me some science and I'll trust it. The stuff you're doing is not science. So COVID was critical. These are the things that COVID accomplished, in my opinion, because COVID was not, sure, there was something that they released on us, I believe. Something that was hidden as a virus or in viral particles. I'm not sure what exactly it was. It was treated totally differently than anything else, including Spanish flu. It was treated totally differently immediately. Somebody knew a lot. There was a plan. Everybody seemed to know what was going on except us. And they certainly weren't telling the doctors. This is what COVID was really about. Worldwide lockdowns, fear, interruption of the supply chain, collapse of small businesses, adoption of biometric surveillance technologies by 5G. Do you notice how many 5G towers they put up during COVID? Social media censorship of misinformation, but who decided what misinformation was? Our intelligence agencies and Dr. Fauci. Control over movement and gathering of the population. Control over the entire narrative of what was scientific truth. And most of what they called scientific truth was absolute scientific lies. Widespread rioting with BLM riots, oh, but they don't spread disease. Fix the election. In my opinion, the 2020 election was absolutely rigged because of COVID and via COVID. Mass unemployment and financial collapse, control over healthcare decisions, vaccines, and doctors, massive spending worldwide to help to collapse the banking system so they can now introduce central bank digital currencies worldwide, including the United States. Consolidate power in large companies and industries supportive of global socialism. That's what COVID was really about. I think we all kind of know that here. So, and I'm so glad that Dr. Stacy went so much into stress, because I can tell you, I dealt with breast cancer. Mammography, I diagnosed and staged breast cancer. I can't tell you how many patients I had who were fine one year, come in with a big cancer, and it's like, wow, this grew so fast. Well, I've been dealing with my husband who has had Alzheimer's and blah, 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 or, you know, stress causes cancer, period. Stress causes and at least exacerbates autoimmune disease. I can tell you that for myself. I've had 2 cancers and I know it was from stress. It was from stress. And autoimmune disease that miraculously almost completely disappeared when I retired. Gee, what does that tell you? You know, various hormones, enzymes are released when your stress hormones are released. We live in a very dramatic society, and oh my gosh, we are rewarded through, think about all the reality TV. You're rewarded for being dramatic, right? Everything is, oh my God, oh my God. I get calls from so many people, what's happening in the world? Oh, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? It's like, take a breath. Okay, you know, and I have to tell you as a physician, 30 years doing this, there are a lot of people out there who would not be happy unless they had some drama in their life, some stress, something to complain about, something that drew attention to them. Let's be honest, I've done it myself. I had to learn this through a meditation course, right? So take responsibility for what you do to yourself. You create your own stress. Life is not without stress. Not here on earth, it's not. It's never meant to be. Life here was never meant to be, okay? It was meant to be full of trials and tribulations, so get over it, okay? Don't cry to me, oh, well, I never get a break. Stop whining, okay? Do you want me to tell you my story? Yeah, sit down here for a few hours and I'll tell you my story. Okay, I don't want to hear yours either, all right? Figure out how to deal with your stress. There's a great mindfulness book that you probably know about. It's called Full Catastrophe Living. Perfect title. Life is a catastrophe. Figure out how to live with it. Okay, and stop whining to everybody about your problems. You think they don't have any? There are a whole lot more people with a whole lot worse problems, sweetheart, than you've got. But there are too many patients that just love to talk about their problems and their medical issues. I can give a political talk, and 3 of the people in line to talk to me at the end want to tell me all about their medical problems. It's like I didn't come here to give free medical advice. I came to educate you about this issue. Now you can call me later, but don't make these other people who have real questions stand in line because you want free medical advice. Okay, honestly. So let's just, you know, Take responsibility for how you contribute to your own health. And I don't mean, eating, and I do mean eating great and all that stuff, but nobody's a perfect individual. But I tell you, stress probably causes more premature aging, heart attack, high blood pressure, mental illness. People love to have a diagnosis. Oh, I'm bipolar. I have PTSD. No, you don't. You know what? I'll show you somebody who really has PTSD, all right? And you should be ashamed of yourself for claiming it. All right? Bipolar is a very specific thing. Schizophrenia, very specific things. Psychosis, very specific things. Most people who claim to have these things or have been told by a psychologist that they have these things isn't true. Everybody is on some spectrum of mental illness, I guarantee you. Seriously. And mental illness was actually an entire area of medicine that was developed by the pharmaceutical companies. And they come up with all these drugs that never really cure anybody, do they? No. How much stuff really cures people? Why can't a psychiatrist ever cure somebody? They don't. Because we're all on a spectrum, and if you just lighten up a little bit and start taking personal responsibility for whatever's going on in your head, with a few exceptions, but what mental health was, what psychiatry was when I was in medical school in the 80s working at the VA hospital with true PTSD Vietnam vets is totally different than the crap that's coming out of my friends' mouths now, and especially their kids. Their kids are absolutely addicted to having some kind of a mental health diagnosis. It's sick. ADD, ADHD. Oh, I have ADD and I have PTSD and I'm bipolar. How can you be alive? So simple things. When I was, during one of my very stressful times when I had my own radiology practice with another partner, and it was insanely busy, and I was just going crazy, and we were in this litigation thing, not a malpractice lawsuit, thank God, but we're in litigation with a prior partner. Ugh, it was a nightmare. My partner comes up and she gives me a little baggie that had a Xanax in it. And she had a little sticky note in there that says, "Have a good day." I still have that bag, and it still has that Xanax in it. Because I looked at that bag and I said, no. I'm not going to take a drug. I'm going to change the problem. Fix the problem. And don't tell me you can't do it. Unless you are willing to do what it takes to fix your problems, you are going to be inundated in drugs with side effects. It's not going to solve your problems, all right? And you're only going to be a pain in the neck to everybody around you, right? Don't take a drug, change your life. High blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, just like Stacy was saying. It's Stacy, right?
Heather.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
There was a Stacy though.
I apologize. Okay, well, Stacy was great too. All of these things can be negated. You can even get rid of diabetes. Type 2 diabetes, some people have even, now there's just all this crossover stuff. But good grief, you can change your life. And the minute, let's talk about, we can talk about things that affect, joint pain, back pain, hip pain, knee replacements. You can prevent most of those things just by managing your weight. Let's be honest with each other. Heart disease, high blood pressure, weight related. Face it. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and even type 1 diabetes. You can even change your diet. Get outside. We are so sedentary and sitting inside. I can tell you I spend most of my day sitting on my front porch, out in my garden, by the way. Can't say enough for gardening, great talk. It is God's gift to the world to get your fingers in the dirt and to watch God make something grow. Green beans are so rewarding. It's like in 2 days they go from a little stub to this gorgeous big fat green bean. It's my favorite thing. And then they flower again, and they never stop. They just keep going. Yeah, I wish I had the energy of a green bean. One thing that a doc told me, because I had kidney cancer, was my first cancer, and I was going to have one kidney removed, and I was, I already had autoimmune disease, so I took ibuprofen like vitamins. I mean, I shove a handful of ibuprofen every morning. Well, so my kidney function was diminished because of ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Why don't they have that ad on television?
Yeah.
Right? Well, it can cause blah, 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 blah. Why don't you say, this will screw up your kidneys, period. Don't take too much of it. That's Aleve, ibuprofen, Advil. All right? Everybody needs to know this. I had a kidney doc who said, yeah, if it weren't for ibuprofen, I'd be out of business. The exponential rise in kidney disease is exponentially parallel to the rise in the use of ibuprofen. But they won't tell you that, will they? No, take your Aleve, works for 12 hours. It's even that much more powerful, and Newsom that much more. Okay? So, if you can take Tylenol or aspirin, aspirin probably would not have been passed by the FDA, but, well, these days they'll pass anything. But aspirin is actually kind of a miracle drug. It's amazing all the good stuff it can do. You don't need something fancy most of the time, including basic antibiotics. You don't need all these fancy antibiotics, but because the drug reps are buying lunches for everybody that works in that doctor's office once a week, in order to get him to prescribe the brand new antibiotic that isn't necessary to fight the vast majority of infections, and that's why we have all the antibiotic resistance that we have. We wouldn't have nearly those problems if doctors didn't succumb to the influence of a pharmaceutical rep with a Subway sandwich, okay? Cook your own food. Stop going out to eat. It's amazing to me. DoorDash. I mean, kids don't know how to cook anymore. Eat your own food. It's gonna be much better for you. They overserve you at these restaurants. It's full of sodium. Now, granted, I go to McDonald's once in a while. We eat out, honestly, maybe once a month. Not very often because my husband's a fantastic cook. But we have a good time doing it. I think it tastes better. You can get as much or as little as you like, have it when you like, and it just makes me sick to my stomach to pay the prices that you have to pay in a restaurant these days. Save yourself some money, save yourself some sodium, save yourself a whole bunch of calories because they serve you so much, and let's face it, nothing is ever as good when it's reheated, right? It's just not as good. So just cook at home. Make it simple. I think one of and decrease carbs definitely, but I think one of the, allergies, my allergies, they're my allergies. Start saying hi to people. I get a little choked up. People are not, they're just not friendly anymore. What happened? COVID. We're all wearing masks. We can't see each other smile. Maybe your eyes smile, maybe they don't. You walk into a convenience store. Somebody holds a door open for you. Most of the time they don't know. They're just walking around, they're in their phone. Stop, smile, say hello. Start up a conversation. Talk about God to somebody. Oh, that's my favorite thing. Not, shoving it down their throat. But my best conversations are about wonder. And it seems like it's gone. And I don't know why. We wonder why people feel so, man, where'd this come from? Hormones. You wonder, so many pastors say that so many people feel so helpless. And it doesn't need to be. All you have to do is talk to each other, encourage each other. Just say hi to a random stranger. I'm from the Midwest, and in Iowa, you got one hand on the top of the steering wheel, right, on your pickup truck, and everybody that you meet, you're waving at them, right? Okay, but probably in Wyoming too, right? Yeah, I think it's fabulous. And you walk down the street, you're walking down the sidewalk, every single person, you look each other in the eye and you don't just say, you know. It's like, hi, how are you? Having a good day? Yeah, isn't this weather great? Cute dog. Oh, thank you. Love your dress. You know, I mean, it's like literally you have a conversation just in meeting a total stranger down the sidewalk. And by the time you get home and you've had a whole bunch of that, you feel pretty darn good. Where did that go? I tell you what, that can minimize your stress. That can circulate. So much of it, right, Heather? So much of stress is blocking circulation. I love acupuncture. I love massage. I think it is the best medicine ever. It has been miraculous for a lot of my stress. And my hot flashes, by the way. Yeah, use it for hot flashes and recommend it. But it's like you start to get the lymphatics flowing in your body, and it just improves your overall health. So just my little bits of advice. But don't obsess about yourself. In my opinion, the best way to happiness is to find a cause greater than yourself. You know, everybody is so focused on me, especially the younger kids. This is what I need. I'm not getting what I need. Well, what are you giving to somebody else? Because you feel a whole lot better about making somebody else feel good than you honestly do about making yourself feel good, right? Find a cause greater than yourself and trust God more than yourself or others. The two big messages. We wouldn't have nearly the stress if we just let God do what He wants to do anyway. He wants us to give it to Him, right, Don? Yeah, I mean, He wants us to turn our stresses and our cares over to Him because He already has a plan. And whatever plan you think you have is nothing compared to the plan He's got. Trust me, I've been there. He always has a better plan. It may take a little longer, maybe a little more subtle, but His plan is always the best one. So let's end on that note. Thank you.